The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Ledgeview Partners. For those that have attended our webinars, I want to say welcome back. And for all you newcomers, it's nice to virtually meet you. Thanks for giving us your time today as we focus on your customer and how we evaluate 10 best practices to improve customer service. My name is Chad Collette. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Ledgeview Partners. We're a business and technology company that collaborates with organizations to transform sales, marketing, and customer service operations and processes that are supported by core technologies including CRM and marketing automation. Now, before I introduce today's presenter, I have a few housekeeping tips that I want to cover. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand after the live session. All attendees will receive a follow-up email after the webinar is complete with a link to access the presentation. We encourage you to share this with your colleagues in your professional network. Now, to ensure the best audio quality, as always, we have everyone in listen-only mode. However, if you have a question or comment, please submit those in the question pane in your GoToWebinar control panel. If we don't answer any questions during the webinar, your question, we'll follow up with you and answer that offline. Now that we got all those items out of the way, it's time to focus on a hot topic that really should be top of mind for every organization: best practices to improve customer service. And we all know how important having good customer service is. After all, you're listening to today's webinar to find those gold nuggets that you can take away to enhance your own service levels. Today's presenter, Greg Dove, Director of Business Consulting at Ledgeview Partners, comes with a vast expert knowledge on this topic to guide you through proven best practices that he's seen firsthand create success across multiple organizations. With that said, it's time to welcome Greg and let him get into the details. Greg, I'll let you take it from here, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Chad, and more importantly, thank you all for attending. So today's topic, as Chad mentioned, is 10 best practices to improve your customer service. And while we say it's to improve your customer service, that implies that you already have a customer service team in place. But I also think if you're looking to start a customer service team, or you have a smaller team, I think there's a lot of tips in here that you'll be able to apply regardless of how big or small or new your operation is. Chad went through and already explained who Ledgeview Partners is, so with that, I'm going to jump right into our agenda. So we're going to talk about a coaching program and how important that is. We'll touch a little bit on ongoing training, measuring results. We'll talk about some metrics, voice of the customer feedback, and a few other topics that'll give you a good perspective of how you should be approaching your customer service team. So implement a coaching program. This is a very, very key part of any customer service team. So what you want to do is create a coaching format that really takes you to the next level. So take an assessment and understand where you're at and where you'd like to be and what some of your key goals are, how you define success, what does that look like, and put together a roadmap of how you would get there, and then create a coaching program that will support that. And when we talk about a coaching program, I want to clearly point out that we're looking at growth through coaching. So this isn't a punitive approach. It's meant to be a very positive program that will really take your reps from where they are today and take them to the next level. So what we want to do is take a look at each rep and establish a baseline and identify some of their strengths and areas for improvement. And once we have that baseline, then we'll go into our coaching sessions, and the whole goal of the session is to reinforce some of those strengths and then point out some of those development areas. And the development areas should transfer from one coaching session to another. That way you know that your reps are working on the feedback that you're giving them and that you're keeping that growth moving forward. So I recommend that you call out those strengths, areas for improvement, and then have those as a basis for your next coaching session. Any coaching program that I've ever been a part of, one of the biggest things is it needs to be taken seriously by both the coaches and the reps. And probably the best way to get the reps to buy in is to give them a say in the process. So ask them some of the challenges they have and let them know that their voice has been heard and that you're putting some things into the coaching program that will account for that. And regardless of what your program looks like or what you're focusing on, take those key components and make a call checklist for the rep to help guide them to success. So if you look at a coaching session with the coach and your reps, that's kind of the test. Give them a checklist, which is kind of like the answers to the test, so they can easily follow that through the call and make a much better experience for them and for your customers. So it's not just to be used during coaching sessions, it can actually guide them through all of their calls. And then I would also recommend making the program as formal as possible. So have pre-scheduled weekly or bi-weekly sessions, and I recommend for sure weekly and bi-weekly in the beginning. And then as your reps become a little more seasoned and you see that growth, then it's okay to maybe pull the reins back a little bit and have monthly coaching sessions. But by all means, have a regular cadence that you're coaching to and let them know what that is. And then I ask you to take it one more step further by having a form that after the coaching session and the results are shared, have the employee and the coach sign it. And what this does is it creates accountability, and it helps them understand that, okay, this is a serious part of my job, and I'm going to take it, for all that it is and try to learn from it and grow from it. But then you'll also have probably 12 to 20 coaching sessions that you can use at the end of the year for their annual evaluation. And I want to really stress that point, because if you're going to go through the whole process of creating a coaching program, it's really important to make it part of their overall evaluation because it really is meant to be a growth tool. Ongoing training. There's a opportunity to understand where we can grow and what some of our shortcomings are. So understand what those areas are and create training around that. And one of the areas I'd like to highlight is products and services that you offer. So when we have products or we develop new products or new services, we always make sure we focus on sales, and sales gets all the training, and they should. But I would encourage you to take the same approach with your customer service reps so they too can become subject matter experts on all of your products. And if you take a step back, I think if they're going to be talking to your customers about your products and services, it only makes sense that they should really, really understand the in and outs of those products or services. So take the time to train them. With any customer service position, there's a number of systems that your customer service reps will be using. Some examples would be the ERP or the back-end system. A CRM is very typically used. And then you have chat, phones, email. So a number of systems that they'll really, they'll be using on a day-to-day basis and a customer-to-customer basis. So make sure that they're experts in those systems, because we want those systems to be a tool to help guide them through the process, not hinder the process. And the best way to do that is to really train them up on all those systems. With any role, there's usually some key initiatives, and with customer service, it's no different. So whether you're focusing on first call resolution, if you have standardized opening and closings, which we'll talk about a little bit later, make sure that they're trained up on those key initiatives, and that they're really making them a part of all their interactions with their customers, because it helps build confidence with the customers. And then whatever you decide those key things are, conduct mock scenarios with your customer service team to make sure that they're following the process and adhering to those key initiatives. A lot of people don't like to do role plays or mock scenarios, but I can tell you, for all the angst that people have about it, they really are worth it. So I would encourage you to spend the time. We always want to know how we're doing, and I think one of the biggest mistakes companies make is their view of how they're doing and their customers' view of how they're doing or how their products or services are. There's usually a bit of a gap, And one of the best ways to close that gap and really understand is to create a mystery shopper program. So what we want to do is work with a third party, and the reason you want to have a third party is because they're unbiased and they're going to give you real honest feedback. Work together with them to create real customer scenarios, and that really are taken from your existing customer scenarios. So understand what a typical call is like and some of the key things you're doing, and then create scenarios that are just like that, and have the third party call in and do an audit and see how they're doing. And I think you'll be very surprised with the results. Some of the things that will definitely come out of this mystery shopper are strengths and weaknesses of the team. I think you'll very easily be able to identify key performers and underperformers, so that way you know where maybe you have some opportunities to take those key performers and advance them, and then work with those underperformers to improve it. And with all types of customer service audits or mystery shoppers, the great thing is you'll come out of it with very clear defined areas where you need training, and then you can go ahead and get the training you need to help your team. So goals and metrics. I know a lot of people think of sales goals, company goals, and those are all great, but just like those areas, customer service needs to have some goals. So I recommend you sit down and you take a look and really understand what's important to your team. So what are some of your key initiatives? What are some of the things you're striving to be? And do an honest assessment and understand, okay, this is where we are today, so that's our current state, and this is where we'd like to be. It may be a ways off, but ultimately this is what we would like to have. And once you do that, then create goals and metrics to support that. I have a list here of some of the most common customer service metrics that are being utilized right now. Average handling time is one that you'll come across a lot. And I'll have to admit, I'm not a huge fan of that one, because I tend to subscribe to the thought you should spend however much time it takes to resolve your customer issue. So if that's a minute, great. But if it's 3 minutes, spend the time and make sure it's a good customer interaction. But it's okay to measure handling time if you're doing the right things with it. So you might see some outliers where people are on average spending 6 to 7 minutes on a phone call, and the rest of your team is 2 minutes. So that'll give you some good data to maybe look at, but I wouldn't get too hung up on average handling time, if at all possible. First call resolution is huge right now, and I think that's a real good one to measure, because if you can handle most of your interactions within the first call, you're going to have happy reps, but more importantly, you're going to have happy customers, because they're coming to you with their issue and you're solving it very quickly. Resolution rate is another one. It's a little scary to think that you'd have to look at that, because I would hope all issues or complaints are resolved, but that's not always possible. So what you can do is take a look at that resolution rate, and if you have cases or issues that haven't been resolved, maybe that's leading to some data that you really need to look at and understand why. But go ahead and take a look at the resolution rate and do what you can to improve that. Another great one is your call quality score. So if we're going to go ahead and coach our people, let's understand how they're doing in those coaching sessions. And it can be very easy. Just have 4 or 5 set criteria, see how they do in each of those criteria, come up with a score or a benchmark, and then compare that to how they did. And then you can do acceptable calls versus non-acceptable calls, and you'll have a good call quality percentage rate. So voice of the customer feedback, you'll hear that a lot right now. And I think when you look at feedback, some of the most valuable feedback you could ever get is from your customer. And I think it's really great feedback, and it's important because it's reality versus assumptions. So whatever you can do to get that voice of the customer feedback, I recommend you do it. You'll have very clear feedback on your products or services. You'll understand how you're comparing to your competitors. A lot of times we have one view of how we hold up against our competitors, and through voice of the customer feedback, you may find that, you know what, there's a bit of a gap there, and you need to do some things to correct that. So some of the most common ways to gain this feedback are through market research, surveys, focus groups. You know, you could probably even do it by going back and listening to some of your customer service calls and really pinpointing some of the things you're hearing and pulling those out. But however you gather the method, use it to improve your products, your services, and what you'll find is you're going to have a lot better retention with your customers, a lot more loyalty, and if you have that, you're also going to have a lot happier customer service reps, which ideally will eliminate turnover and increase job satisfaction. So empowering your CSR is something that I really believe in, and you know, regardless of your position, I think every employee wants to have some wiggle room to make some decisions. So what I recommend is creating some standard policies for issue resolution. So it doesn't have to be for every issue, but if you can look and, you know, select, hey, maybe these, you know, 30 issues that we have are common complaints, we pretty much resolve them the same way. So why don't we go ahead and let that rep follow our procedures and resolve that issue themselves. And then if you have cases, you can set a threshold and let the rep maybe make the decisions up to that threshold for that customer. And a lot of times what companies will do if there's an issue with a product, they will go ahead and they may send you a new product. They may issue a refund. Some companies will send out coupons. Whatever it is, give them a threshold so the rep can handle them up to that point. And that's going to go a long way in helping the rep feel good and empowered. And it's also going to make the customer happy because, hey, here we have it again, a first call resolution. Escalation processes are something that I think are important too. So we want to empower our rep to do as good of a job as they can in each customer interaction. But sometimes they're just going to get to a point where they've tried everything and they can't resolve it. So have a clear-cut process and teach them how to nicely transition that difficult call or difficult case to a supervisor or a more senior rep. Feedback from your team is very important. So what I would recommend is having some type of monthly meeting where you can talk and take feedback from your reps. And if it makes sense and you can do it, implement some of their ideas, because that way they'll feel that they're a part of the overall process. And again, it's just going to give them a better approach to the role. Just as important as feedback to the reps, I would also encourage, you know, the supervisor or the manager of the customer service department to give feedback to the reps on a consistent basis. So if they have a really great call, go ahead and praise it and let them know what they did right. And if they have a tough call or they have to send a call to, you know, the escalation, follow that process, let them know that it's okay. It's all part of the learning. So make sure you're recognizing what they do great and encouraging and helping them grow through the tough calls and then continuing to move that growth forward. And the most important reasons that you want to empower your rep is it's going to create higher customer satisfaction, definitely improve the customer service job satisfaction, and create buy-in. So showing empathy, we touched on that just a little bit before. And why this is important is if your customer takes the time to contact you, let's make sure that we're showing some empathy. And probably the first thing you need to do is listen. Listen, listen, and listen, and understand why the customer is calling, and let them explain the reason for the call, the issue that they're having, and then recap that to them so they understand that you know why they're calling. And during that process, do not talk over them. Let them get it out, and by doing that, you'll automatically be diffusing the situation and calming them down. So just by following a couple easy steps, you can already probably improve the overall experience for your customer by doing those simple things. And make sure you're thanking them and telling them you're sorry for the inconvenience of what the issue is. And I think you can, by following that, right away you're probably already halfway, maybe even a little bit more, to resolving them, because you'd probably know what you're going to do to resolve that issue, but work them through this process and let them know that you care. If it's a common issue and you've heard other complaints about it, relate to their pain. Say, yeah, I'm sorry that's happening. We've had a few other instances, and this is what we're doing to correct that, and I apologize that it happened to you. So again, right away you're diffusing them and kind of taking that edge off for them. In customer service positions, regardless of what company I've worked with, it's very common that you have the angry or upset customer. So regardless of if your customer is yelling, or even if, unfortunately they're swearing, you need to make sure that you don't mimic that behavior. Stay professional, stay calm. If you have the option, move it to the escalation line, but never ever engage in an argument with your customer. And I hate to encourage this, but sometimes you may get to the point, if you've tried to escalate the call and the customer continues to yell or swear or act unprofessional, you may have to ask them to call back. And I've seen that happen in rare instances, but sometimes there's no point in carrying on with that conversation. And then at the end of the call, just make sure that you thank them for engaging and make sure that you solve their problem. So every interaction with your customer, regardless of channel or by rep, should be consistent and repeatable. So if I engage with one of your customer service reps, if it's through a phone call, if it's through chat, if it's through email, I should have the same experience. Likewise, if I call today and talk to one rep and call back tomorrow and talk to another rep, it should be almost the same phone call, with the only difference maybe being a little bit of their personality coming out. But you can really make sure that happens if you have standardized openings and closings and really control what they're saying and how they're interacting with the customer. Just as important as that interaction is the systems that you use. So CRM, the ERP or back-end system, make sure that they're using them the way that you want them to be used, and whatever your guidelines are, give them a checklist so they know exactly what they should be putting into each one of those systems. And that way you can take a look and see if there are issues developing, or if you have cases that are being opened and there's a very common complaint or issue, you can identify that and then go to work to resolve that issue, or take it back to the product team, or go back to the warehouse and see if there's something going on with the deliveries. But you're not going to get all that if you don't have a consistent and repeatable process with your systems. From a day-to-day point with the customer service rep, they're managing a lot of tasks. And some of those are probably very critical, and some of those might not be as critical. So what I would recommend is ranking those and then putting together a flow diagram that shows them, hey, these top 5 things are really important. Make sure you get those done. And these ones down here, if we don't get them done right away, that's okay. And if you do that, you might find that some of those lower priority tasks, maybe they could go to another department, or maybe they could be done offline. But focus on what's really important and let them know what's important so they can follow that. Escalation guidelines, we talked about how to handle those escalated calls. Just make sure everyone understands it and that everyone's following the same process. And regardless of what your approach is, what your process is, what your flow diagram looks like, use cheat sheets and checklists to help them do exactly what you want to do. So take the guessing game out of it and give them clear-cut instructions, and then give them tools that reinforce that. So we've talked a lot about the processes and things that you should do to have an effective customer service team. Just as important is hiring the right person for your customer service team. So I recommend that you sit down and take a look at what are the key things that you want to be achieved, or how do you define success within that role. List those things down, and then clearly list the skill set or criteria that it would take to do those things. And right there, you probably have 3/4 of your job description. But then I would take it a step further and also look and make sure that you're hiring someone with experience. And I recommend 1 to 2 years. And the reason that's so important is if you can look and see that you have a rep who has already been in a customer service role for 1 to 2 years, and they're applying for a customer service role with you, that means they're interested in doing it. So have a clear-cut job description and look for experience. Once you get to the interview, just make sure that your candidates really want to do this role. Ask them questions that verify their experience, and make sure it's lining up with what you're seeing. And if all the answers are good, put them through some scenarios. Have a couple of mock scenarios, run them through them, and see if they're portraying the behaviors that you want, and they're portraying the experience that they're telling you that they have. Once you've done all that and you have a candidate that you think is qualified, what I would do next is let them shadow with one of your more experienced reps or a supervisor. And that's going to do 2 things for you. Number one, it'll give you another evaluation of that candidate by someone that you trust. So that's a great thing right there. But number 2, it's going to take that candidate and give them a look or a view into what they would be doing for you on a part-time or full-time basis. And once they've gone through that, ask them, what did you think? What's your feedback? And hopefully they're going to say, that's exactly what I love to do. And then you have a good match moving forward. In the rare occurrence where they say, boy, that isn't what I thought it would be at all, that's still okay, because I'd rather have them say, no, I don't want to do this before I hire them, than to hire them and bring them on and have them work in that role and then say, no, this isn't what I want to do. So absolutely let them shadow if you're looking to hire them. And then another tip that I think applies to a lot of roles, not only customer service, but don't mix roles. So don't have someone doing part-time customer service in the morning and sales in the afternoon. Try to keep them focused on the role that you hired them for. And another tip there is don't let customer service be a place where you bring someone in, groom them for sales, or maybe someone's about to retire and you put them into a customer service role to bridge that last year before they retire. Hire people that want to be a customer service rep and put them in that position and keep them there. So finally, you've hired the right reps, you have a lot of processes in place, and you're rewarding successes, and you want to know what you can do to maintain it. And I would say that this is one of the areas where companies really struggle. And one of the best ways to keep it a good, fun, rewarding experience is create incentive based on the key metrics or those things that you've identified that mean success for your team. Give them incentives. They don't have to be huge incentives, but give them something that moves them towards achieving those metrics. And if you have a key initiative or a Q1 push, whatever it is, create a team goal. And it doesn't have to be monetary. It can be small things like, if we achieve this, we have a team lunch or a team dinner. Maybe wear your favorite team jersey day. Have a bell where if you have an exceptional call, you ring it and everyone knows who had the great call. Even simple things as, take your supervisors and put a snack jar in their office and let your customer service reps come in and grab a piece of candy and share a story. But whatever, get them involved, make it fun, and take feedback and ask them what you can do to make it more rewarding and fun for them. So I know I went through a lot of information very quickly there, but the good thing is if you want more information on customer service, if you want more information on our technology, our consulting, CRM, you can absolutely come to our website, and there's all kinds of great information there that is absolutely free. So I encourage you to go out there and look. And with that, I'll say thank you very much for attending today. Definitely appreciate it. And with that, I'll pass it back to you, Chad.
Thanks a lot, Greg. Appreciate all the great tips and best practices. If you missed my introduction, we did record today's presentation. We'll be sending everyone a link to access this webinar on demand, and the email will have our contact information if you do have any questions that arise at a later time. As Greg mentioned, we also encourage you to visit our website at ledgeviewpartners.com for additional information on resources that cover sales, marketing, customer service, CRM, and much more. Also keep an eye out. We'll be transforming all this information today into an easy-to-digest ebook and some infographics that you can reference as you implement any of the ideas that you've heard and take away. We hope to see you again on some future webinars. As always, we have several on the docket here at Ledgeview. You can visit our news and events page at ledgeviewpartners.com for all of our upcoming webinars and events that we have slated, and access to all of our past webinars on demand. So on behalf of Greg and the entire team here, until we speak again, thank you very much for joining us today, and make it a great day.